I realized that the seconds and minutes of my day at my job were nothing for me. They were not interesting for me. They weren't helping the world. They weren't actually living into my authentic self in any way. I feel like most people get into relationships without doing that healing and the explore experiment first. The word Tantra is so misunderstood. I say it has the worst marketing department in the world. It's 3,000 years old. Most people don't know what it is, or they could say something that it is. I don't know anyone else who really defines Tantra under the 4 pillars that I do, which is acceptance, self-love, connection, and presence.
What is a tantric massage?
I want to be clear that it's not therapy.
Hi, I am joined today with Justin Gottlieb of Tantra Love Coach. He's a sexual freedom facilitator and transformational guide to truly up-leveling experiences. Justin has traveled around the world fusing esoteric wisdom with modern day sensibility regarding intimacy, love, and relationships. He has consulted on a variety of media outlets as a sex expert, and he also has contributed to numerous workshops, containers, and retreats around the globe. Justin truly guides humans into living their purpose on point. And it's such an honor to be joined by him today to share his journey with us. And I also just feel so thrilled that I can refer to Justin as a friend, a mentor, and a brother. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that beautiful intro. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Tantra, right? As Tantra Love Coach, I know we're going to get into this topic. So many humans are curious about that field and its relationship to sex and intimacy. But I really want to start with who you are and your journey and your story of origin. I would love for you to just share with us how you got to this place, right? Because one doesn't just wake up one day and say, I think I want to be a Tantra coach. So yeah, if you want to just start with your origin.
Definitely not. I did not wake up and even think I would be in the world of spirituality. I kind of had a totally different path than many people in the spiritual world, but I did always have this inclination towards freedom and liberation and adventure and definitely an inclination towards sexuality in some ways. So this journey really started. I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to Penn State. I was a psych and business major. I was in a fraternity. And really what I had been taught is, you get a good job, you make a lot of money, you have the family, their typical white picket fence dream. Yeah. And, I was doing pretty well in that category. I graduated, I got a job in New York, lived in Manhattan for 9 years, and was really kind of living that typical life in Manhattan, fast paced, I was in finance. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Miami, after some entrepreneurial endeavors, some changes in business, getting a little bit more into sales and outside of finance, that I kind of had a spiritual awakening. I did this training called gratitude training, similar to Landmark or Tony Robbins, kind of came from the EST trainings or the LifeSpring trainings from back in the 60s. But it was a really spiritual training wrapped in like more of a business, practical, grounded delivery. It was perfect for me. I was not at a place in my life where I would have listened to like the gurus or the swamis and that kind of thing. I really wasn't a yogi, any of that kind of stuff. But what happened was I realized that I get to really look at my life and redesign it. Yeah. There was so much conditioning and indoctrination and things within me that I was like, well, am I even living the life I want? And although, from the outside I'm successful and I have a nice apartment, the girlfriend, the car, the blah, 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 I wasn't actually really happy. So that's when this process started kind of in 2015, where I was like, well, let's see what else is available and what is my unique gift? So through that and through actually opening up from this training into like believing in spirituality and energy and breath work and different modalities, I went down, a more typical spiritual path. And, I did ayahuasca, I sat with grandmother, I did all these different things and allowed me to see a new possibility for myself and for the world. And that's when I said, what are my gifts? What are the things that really drive me? And it really did come down to like adventure, travel, pleasure. I loved giving massages. I was kind of giving Tantra massages since I was a teenager without really knowing it was a Tantra massage. Yeah. I was a rare, boy, I guess, a young man who was like, would love to have lovers and women over and have an experience where I would just give to them and give them pleasure. And that was really something great. And I was researching sexuality for a long time. So all of that really had me, bring that together with the spiritual side of things and the personal development side of things and realize I want to create a life where I have a job that is in service, that there's no limit on how much money I could make. I don't have a boss, and I work in places that I love, right?
Yeah.
So like, I didn't want to end up coaching for that program I did, because in the training program, a 6-month, very serious training program, I realized like, I don't want to be in hotel conference rooms, coaching and facilitating. I want to be traveling the world in beautiful beaches and mansions and building beautiful Tantra temples and being able to work there. So that was kind of the journey. And that's when I quit the corporate world. I had my plan to travel and kind of my retirement from the corporate world trip, which led me to start Tantra Love Coach, which really started fully like after trainings and all of that in January of 2019.
Okay. Wow. What an epic journey. And I want to go back to, that place that you were at in the corporate world, because I think it's extremely relatable. So many humans are working 9 to 5 in these structured, we like to call them archaic paradigms, but just the executive functioning structure of most jobs, right? And they find themselves feeling either burnt out, stressed, or like living this meh existence. And so in the awareness that this is just a common reality for so many humans, right? I heard you kind of speak into like stepping into this redesign of your life, but what was really the catalyst, right? Like when was that moment that you just realized, I no longer want this? And how did you find the next step, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in there. One, I want to say that there's nothing wrong with if you want to be in the corporate world. Like we need that in the world, and there's people that love what they do, and that's great. I'm not here to dog on anybody for being in the corporate world and finance and all these things. For me, though, once I did this relook at myself and became conscious to my life, I was like, yeah, this isn't what I really want.
Yeah.
And it's also was because I was living in Manhattan on 47th and 2nd, Midtown East, through the hustle and bustle, concrete jungle. And it was only because that's kind of where I was. That's where I was born. That's where my family was. That's where everyone went after college. If you were a kind of successful guy, you lived in Manhattan. So it was like, I was just on this conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And after a few years in New York, I started realizing I was complaining to my buddy and he was complaining to me. Like, why do we live in New York? It's so expensive. It's, the streets are smelly. The subways are gross. There's all these reasons. We were just like, everybody's worried about, their next move in their career and money. And I kind of just became like, why am I doing this? And you have to look at everything like that, first of all, and decide, like, do I want to make a change? Yeah. And once you do, you need to add urgency. And I really added the urgency of really doing this kind of practice of being on my deathbed and looking back at my life and just going like, would I be proud of how I spent the seconds of my life? Not the years, not the decades, but the seconds of my life. And I realized that the seconds and minutes of my day at my job were nothing for me. They were not interesting for me. They weren't helping the world. They weren't actually living into my authentic self in any way. They were great living into other people's idea of what you should do. So when you keep death close, when you notice that like you don't have forever, you don't know when this amazing journey will be over for you, you start to go, well, I might as well have fun while I'm doing it. I might as well be in service to others. I might as well take some risks. Yeah. And I did notice once I took those risks and multiple jobs that I quit, and I'm just like, I was never someone who wanted to stay in something forever that I didn't like. So when I quit jobs, I would see actual like disappointment in some of the other employees and coworkers there, because they'd kind of be having this like, oh, you got out. And almost a jealousy, especially the people that were there for a long time, and they made it their identity. I'm the director at Barclays Capital and right? And it's their identity. It's really hard to leave that because people applaud you for that because that's what you're supposed to do. But when you come into what you really want to do and you actually have that free moment to take that breath of like, this is my new life and I decide my own reality. I create my path right here. We talk about it a lot, but when you actually do it, when I quit my last corporate job, I remember on the phone the exact moment I did it, and I got off the phone and I let out this sound, and I could never replicate it. It was like the most joyful, celebratory, like just natural sound that could ever come out of me, and it was incredible. And it was this moment of like release, and it's never happened again in that sense. And I think it was the moment of you got it. You realize that this life is way more than that stuff, and you are going to follow your truth. And that's been my path, is like really the truth of the Cobra, I call it. But it's really like following my truth in this life, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's tough in this world today, where like there's a lot of virtue signaling. There's a lot of like, you know, you should believe in this and you should act this way and you should be inclusive and you should do this and that and all the shoulds, right? But to be able to, in the face of that, just stand in your truth, and of course, coming from a good and honorable place and being in integrity, that's life. That's really powerful. That's why we create a beautiful world through everyone's unique gifts.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. It resonates with me so deeply. I also had a moment similar. I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and when I got laid off, I had this deep exhale, right? It's similar, like this sound that I probably could never replicate again, but it was this relief of like, I no longer have to bear this burden of the expectations of society and my parents, all the things. And I remember talking to a friend that day. She's like, why don't you come up to New York and work for Goldman Sachs? And I was like, no. And I ended up going to culinary school. So it definitely resonates with me as well. And I guess, you know, you talked about being able to take that risk and carve out a new path and really like truly live a life you love based on adventure and taking on the risk. But I guess I'm curious, for a lot of humans, it's not that easy, right? And so share with us sort of that first step of like understanding the self and that healing aspect that has to occur before you can just like drop it all and you know, move to Bali, right?
Yeah, and it is a process and it's different for everyone. But I do think that like, obviously preparing is a good idea, right? Like there's some people who just say, you know, screw it, I'm going to quit my job, I'm out and I'm going to figure out the rest later. Honestly, I think that's a better path than just staying in what you don't like. If you're coming in with it, keeping death close, if you're coming in with this idea that like tomorrow might be my last day, am I going to spend another month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years preparing for my big, you know, exit of the corporate world or whatever it may be? Maybe it's better just to go and trust and surrender into the universe and know that you'll be taken care of. You know, maybe it's easier for me to say that because I did like have savings and I did really have a lot of fallbacks for when I did quit, but I still prepared. It still took me a while, and the universe does confront you with a lot of things when you're going through that process of reinventing your life. You know, I looked back and I created a process, and it's pretty simple for people to remember. It's heal, and then it is experiment, explore, and then it is empower and mastery. So the first thing we have to do if we're going to go on this journey and we're going to quit our job and like kind of come into our true selves is we got to heal all this stuff from the past. That's our conditioning, our indoctrination, healing from the trauma, all the things that are controlling us that isn't actually our truth. It's others' truths maybe and other things that have happened, but we need to heal from that so that we can now be in our true authentic self. And from that place, then we explore and we experiment. We try new relationship dynamics. We travel and decide where we want to live. We maybe do try some other different jobs. And we're in this experimenting phase from our authentic place, from our truth. And from that, first of all, it's a lot of fun. That was like probably the best time of my life. You know, I was traveling the world for a year with no destination, no end date. It was just, let's see what happens. I remember being in Bali and people going like, oh, you got to go to these places in Thailand and these places in Vietnam. Vietnam was never on my list. And I spent a month in Vietnam because of that. And it was my favorite country in the world I've ever been to. So that journey of exploring, experimenting, really coming from your true self is the most important step. Yeah. And a lot of people miss that because they are conditioned to have to do things in a certain way.
Yeah. I want to pause you right there because, you know, the words that you're using for us, it's very easy to identify what is your authentic true self. But I guess for other listeners and watchers who are like, I don't know who I am. I don't know this phrase, like my authentic true self. How, as a coach, do you help humans find that? Or you could share your own journey of how you discovered that.
Yeah, I mean, most people kind of know it, but they're ignoring it or there's something covering it up, right? So like, I knew from an early age that I wanted to help people. I also knew that I liked like art and being creative in different ways. I was also a sales guy. I was literally buying, if you remember, Bubblicious gum in like 4-packs and selling them for like $1 each. I was going into Chinatown and buying as a kid, I was buying.
You had a side hustle.
Always had a side hustle. Yeah. So I was buying like Oakleys in Chinatown for like $10 and selling them for $30 in school. I got in trouble a couple of times. You know, when you're that kind of person, that's not like, it wasn't learned. That wasn't that was who I am. I wanted to take opportunities, right? And be able to make money. That was important to me as well. So when you notice those things, but like, where did that go? Well, I was still told over and over again, well, you have to have a job so you could have a 401k and you could have benefits and all of that. And that stuck in my head. That's why it took me so long to actually quit my job and go into more an entrepreneurial, or as I say, tantrapreneurial job.
Ooh, I love that term, tantrapreneurial.
Yeah, I'm a tantrapreneur. So that kind of, it has you kind of having to deconstruct yourself. And that means doing different workshops, going to a therapist, going to a coach. It's hard to do it on your own because you're trying to get out of the problem that you created with the same brain, the same body and everything. Well, you need to start to try different modalities. So, when I coach people, like, that's what I do. I support them and really ask a lot of questions to see, like, is this what you want? For me, it was breath work. Breath work was something that I couldn't deny had an extreme power. Because this was in my stage where I really wasn't like, I don't know about energy and all this stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, prove it to me. I'm a science guy, you got to show it to me, right? It was definitely seeing is believing, and now it's believing is seeing, right? So back then it was doing breath work and doing it with an amazing coach, Benicio, and he did these private sessions with me, and I would always come in with like a question. One was like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? And because I did that modality, I was able to have this deep emotional release. Also, I was able to, I believe the science around breath work is it does kind of, lessen the prefrontal cortex, which is about ego and identity and all of this kind of stuff. So it actually allows you to kind of drop the obstacles that you have about yourself to not allow you to do the things you truly want. So it really was in this place of slaying all the dragons that kept me from doing what I truly wanted to do. So in that, my truths were coming out. And the questions he was asking me were like, well, what do you enjoy doing? And I was like, oh, I love like massage. I love sex. and I was being really real, right? Because a lot of people don't want to admit that. Like, I love sexuality. Like, most people want to say something that's more, PC or more, common or whatever. But that was my truth. And that came out. And then I was like, well, what could you do in that realm? And of course I went through silly things like, oh, I don't want to be a porn star. I'm not, I'm not a stripper. I don't know, I'm this and that. And then it came into like, well, what about Tantra massage? And I was like, well, I'm sure I could learn, the things I need to learn to go into that. And then I was like, but I don't know if I can make enough money doing it. And he's like, well, why not? And I'm like, well, I don't know, actually, I can make money doing anything. I feel like that's a superpower of mine. So that's not an excuse. Throw that away. Then it's like, well, what would my family think? And it's like, my family have told me my whole life, we love you as long as you're happy, do whatever you want to do. Thankfully, thank you to my family, because I probably wouldn't be doing this maybe if I wasn't able to slay that dragon, right? And then I remember the silliest one was being like, well, if I do this stuff and it's out on the internet, then like I'm never going to be able to come back to the corporate world. And in that moment, I'm just going, I know I don't want to go back to the corporate world. Like, this is actually perfect. It's actually not an obstacle. It's a great reason to do this because it will maybe force me not to go back to the corporate world, because maybe, at that point I was like, who's going to hire a guy who's doing this weird Tantra stuff? Yeah. So all of that stuff pushed me in. Literally the next day I signed up for one of Charles Muir's Tantra trainings in California. And that was it. That's the other thing is you have to take your action quick. You can't have these aha moments and then go back to work and go back into your relationship you don't want to be in, or living in the same place you want to. Go take a vacation. Go sign up for that training. Go do that right away. And another thing that helped me was reading the book, Think on These Things by Krishnamurti. And it's really just like his questions from his students as well as his answers. And it's just a lot of really important life stuff. And my whole brand, my logo now is like a cobra. And it all comes down to this thing I call a truth of a cobra. And that is something he mentioned in the book was basically, when you're walking down the street in India and you see a cobra, there's just a truth to that. You don't go up and ask the cobra what its name is and pet it and whatever. Cobras are deadly, right? There's this truth of what this is. Wow. And you can try to deny it. You can make all this bullshit up, but more likely than not, And I believe we each have that within us. We each have a truth that is that truth of a cobra that we can't really deny, but we try to, finagle it. So I really urge people to go in and think about, what is your truth? What is that cobra within you that you're like, yep, this is a cobra. There's no way around it. And why am I not living into that?
Yes. Can we talk about the cobra moment in White Lotus?
Please,
no, just kidding. No, actually, I want to go back I want to pin the cobra piece because I think it's really a really beautiful analogy for your work specifically. But I kind of want to go back to this juicy statement of you claiming, I love sex, right? And you shared kind of the limiting beliefs that you had to shed and these obstacles. But in that, proclamation, or maybe it was a reclamation, what came through for you as, like, how did that get connected to tantric massage, right? Like, how did that share with us sort of like the breadcrumbs of how you found Charles Muir and how you just sort of took that leap and said, I'm going to study the fuck out of sex.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I think part of it was like, I didn't really, I didn't know what else I could do that would be like, somewhat socially acceptable, right? Like I was not looking, like I said, to be a stripper or a porn star or whatever. There wasn't OnlyFans back then. So it was really just like, well, what would I do in this? And also, again, coming back to those key elements of what I wanted to do with my life, which was being in service, right? So how was I going to be in service with this sexual exploration and adventure? And Tantra is really the main way to do that, to actually bring together the spiritual and the sexual. And I say, actually, it isn't two separate things. It's two sides of the same coin. And when I can help people step into their sexual liberation and their freedom and actually be able to speak their truth, their boundaries, their desires, everyone lives a happy life. I don't see many people with a great conscious sex life that are miserable.
Yes,
so
go deeper into this.
This is why I got into it as well, is like I wanted to really be, I'm all about efficiency and effectiveness. You've been to my retreats, you know a lot about me. You've worked with me on this rituals event that we're doing. And I'm about, let's get this done as quickly and as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Of course, safely and all of that. But like, let's make this as impactful as we can. And when I was like, well, what am I going to support people with? Where's first of all, what's the most powerful energy in the world? Sexual energy. Where do we get closest to the divine and God? Sexuality, in my opinion. Like, what is an orgasm even? Why do we say, oh my God, all the time?
Yes.
Right? So all of that is so clear to me that this is like the place. It also is the place that has the most issues and shadows and indoctrination. And, we've got religion. We're fighting all these fights just to come back to what is true and natural. And it probably is the thing people are most messed up on, right? The most problems, the most issues, and it affects every single aspect of your life. People don't get how, if they don't have a good relationship with their body and their sexual energy, how much that affects their job, how it affects how much money they make, how it affects, of course, relationships, but outside of the bedroom. So because of all of that, it came very clear to me that this is going to be the most powerful and effective thing I can do. And I have gifts around being able to do it and experience. I got my first Tantra massage when I was 22 in Germany, not because I wanted this spiritual experience, because I was so inclined to and fascinated by sexuality. And I remember I took my girlfriend at the time, who was probably 19, I was 22. I mean, she was studying abroad in Paris, where I meet her in Cologne, Germany. And there's this place called Ananda. I hope it still exists. I spoke to some German people. I think they said it does still exist. And I was there for the exploration and the curiosity. And also I love pleasure. Why not? What was this all about? I think at the time I thought it wasn't even available in America. So I was like, I'm going to Europe. I might as well do this,
Sure.
And I got one of my best lessons there in Tantra, but it was well before I actually had any spiritual awakening or was anywhere near the world of Tantra. And it was funny because I'm starting this experience with this woman. My girlfriend at the time is with another woman, and they're naked and they're putting oil all over themselves. And I look at this woman who's about to give me this Tantra massage, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And she goes, just breathe and try not to ejaculate. And I'm like, that's probably the most simplest definition of the sexual side of Tantra without going into any detail whatsoever.
Just breathe and try not to ejaculate.
Really, that for a complete newbie was amazing, because I actually focused on breathing for once in my life instead of just doing the same old, way that I would be in pleasure. Right. So that part. And then also I never tried not to ejaculate. I would edge myself and all that and those kind of things, but I never was really in the state of being with another person and being like, oh my God, I'm going to hold out as long as I can with this very skilled, amazing woman who I'm paying for this experience. Of course I want to ejaculate. I want to have this orgasm.
Yeah.
And it was probably only 7 seconds between when I would have normally and then when I did. And those 7 seconds was an expanded orgasm. It was not a full body Kundalini, awakening, but it was a really beautiful expansion. And just those 7 seconds showed me what else would be possible in every area of my life. If this is how I was doing one thing my whole life, and now with this minor knowledge, major, but just a few words, it could change my entire sex life. Well, where else could I be changing everything?
I love that. Yeah, let's talk about tantric massage. I know it's one of your core offerings and key modalities that you not only guide individuals and couples on, but you also teach in your workshops and trainings. And yeah, just color it in for us and help us to like demystify, like, what is a tantric massage?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's so many different types. So I'm just going to describe what mine has become. And my session is like a amalgamation of all the different things that I've learned and I've seen, and also what works for my clients, right? So everyone has different audiences. I want to be clear that it's not therapy, right? Like, there is a lot of ways that can support you and heal trauma and really support the body. But I really believe that now, through my whole journey and everything that I've learned, you really do want to go to a trauma therapist and
Yes.
go to a more clinical sense for that first, to really
100%.
get clear on what's going on. But a tantra massage is different from a regular massage. Is, first of all, regular massages typically have a routine. Like, it's here you go, you're going to do this. They usually do the same thing to every person. First they do the left side, then they do the right, they go down there. So it's kind of, you could easily be in your head. What I love about a tantra massage is it's in this flow. There's no goal. There's no result that you're trying to get to. So all I do is welcome a person in and say, we welcome all of you.
Yeah.
Every aspect of you, your emotions, your pleasure, your horniness, your confusion, every aspect of you is allowed here. And just giving that kind of permission in this experience and really saying, like, you don't have to do anything, but there are these tools. And you can breathe, and you could use movement, and you can sound out, and you really get to like empower yourself to communicate. If you like something, ask for more. If you don't like something, say, please stop, or slower, or faster, or whatever. And this empowerment when it comes to the body, and also most tantra massages, if it's within the boundaries, does include full body. So you're actually going to do a specific massage on the vagina or on the penis or on the breast, in these areas where there are forbidden typically in regular massages, which just brings a different energy, right? When it's like, oh my God, cover up. I have had multiple massages in other countries where I'm like, am I allowed to get naked? And like, they're kind of like, I don't know, like, and I'm like, I don't want to have a massage in like a bathing suit or like underwear. Like, it just doesn't feel... It
feels
doesn't even
limiting.
make sense. Yeah, it
it
doesn't even
feels
make
limiting
sense to me, right?
when we're supposed to feel liberated, relaxed, and in the
Right.
deepest surrender.
And I get why at some places that's important, and that's fine. I'm not trying to break their boundaries in that sense. But in this experience, it's welcomed for you to be all of you. And to also, when I look at giving a yoni massage or a massage of the vagina, it's not okay, cool, this is just another part thing. It's like, how do I look at this organ, this part of this person, as an entire body? How do I massage and touch and honor every single aspect of this part of their body?
Yeah.
And then what is the energy that we're creating here? So for women, we're moving the energy slowly in the first, in my case, like an hour and a half of the massage is moving that energy slowly from the outer extremities in towards the vagina, allowing it to be the flower and bloom, and giving it the proper time and space, which could be the biggest realization for most women in a tantra massage is, what does it actually feel like when I'm ready? When I'm wet, when my yoni, my vagina is begging for penetration. And then someone asks and says, may I? And then you have the opportunity to say yes or no. Yeah. Most women unfortunately will never experience that in their entire life. And they will just think, just like I did around my orgasm, that this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I want to tell everybody out there, it's not the way it is. That's the way you may know it. But there's new benchmarks that can be created when you step into your power, when you do this explore experiment, when you go through all of your healing. And that is what's going to have people be sexually liberated, be able to communicate, have better dates. I mean, the amount of horror stories I hear about people dating in Miami or wherever, and I'm just going, wow, if you had a few tantra massages, had some coaching, got really clear on what you like and don't like, and were able to communicate that, and most importantly, which people don't do, is be discerning about who you date.
Yeah.
Be discerning about who you were going to go on this date with. Like, sometimes someone tells me the story and I just go like, whoa, you went on a date with that person? I know you. That person does not sound like a match. And you ignored 5 red flags.
I want to go back to the yoni massage. I have such deep respect and reverence for you as a male practitioner in this space. Yeah. To be able to curate these really sacred, safe containers for the feminine to be in their fullest expression. I like to say that we are volatile by nature, that we we don't have a lot of opportunities in the outside world to be in our rage, our wrath, our sadness, our grief, and our pleasure and our bliss. And so I know that is part of the intention of the container that you create, and the slowness and the intentionality. So really share with us like the drop-in, right? How do you create that container of consent and safety?
Yeah, so that's the most important part too, and a big distinction. Typically you get a regular massage and it's like, all right, does anything hurt? Is there anything, injuries I need to know about? And then you jump in.
Right.
This is, I have, usually it's an hour, but sometimes an hour and a half conversation. That's after we already spoke on the phone to make sure it's a fit. That's after they filled out a very lengthy intake form. And that conversation is usually about going through their intake form, really understanding their past, where they're at now, and where they want to be. It is, of course, talking about the boundaries, the desires. What is their intention for this experience? Do they have any fears that we can help dissolve by speaking them forward?
Yeah.
Right. It's also about creating a safe space physically, right? Like, what does this place look like? I built out a beautiful Tantra temple in my home, which you've seen. Yeah. And, you know, when you walk into that, you're not like, oh, all right, this is just someone's bed, or you're going on like, you know, on a mattress on the ground or whatever. You're like, oh, I'm like, the goddess is stepping in, the queen is coming out. Like, this is real, and this is for me. And I get to really appreciate that I said yes and acknowledge myself for stepping into this. You also want to make sure it's warm enough and you have all the right, you know, tools and things that you want to use there. So all of that creates this safe space. And really, most importantly to me, and also for me to feel safe, is I want to know that if this person doesn't like something or needs something, that they're actually going to say something to me.
Yeah. This piece about articulation, utilizing the voice, is super critical for the feminine, right? In our connection between the throat chakra and the yoni portal, and also just, like you said, all the opportunities in our life where we don't speak our truth, where we acquiesce. So yeah, I would just love to hear from you, like that connection of the voice and the yoni, and sort of what comes through, or what inspiration you have for women that feel the block surrounding being able to ask for what they want or claiming their desires.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard for me because I have never lived the life of a woman, or even anybody who hasn't really been able to speak their truth, right? Like, I've been blessed in the sense that I'm very vocal about things. I'm really big on like holding my boundaries and speaking my desires. So what I would say to people is, A, it's probably one of the most important things of your life. So if you're not working on it in some way, and you are a people pleaser, or you're someone who, you know, just fawns or freezes, and you are not really able to speak your truth in circumstances, or you feel like you're getting railroaded by people, you know, it's really important to do whatever work works for you. Like, I can't say for sure, because every different modality will help people open up. I know that at the Tantra Love Retreat, we do a lot of work on that and helping people with the amazing groups that we curate, right? We have a screened event. We really make sure that the 30 or so people that are going to be at this event are there to, in a way, support each other as they go through their growth journey.
Yeah.
But learning how to communicate, learning how energy can communicate, learning how your body position communicates, learning how to be in what is pleasure for you and how to communicate that. You know, we never get a manual just to our own pleasure or to someone else's pleasure. So we do have to explore that and be able to communicate it. So we do exercises in our retreat, as well as other retreats, where you can learn this stuff and practice it in a safe space. You don't necessarily want to be practicing this out there with like an unconscious person or someone who doesn't know this, because sometimes those people they just don't know any better, and they're just trying to take, and they're just trying to get what they want to get out of it. And they see it as an opportunity, and they see you as an opportunity. Yeah. So it's really about finding the right people, the right, you know, practitioner. And it's like, I'm not the right practitioner for everybody. I know that, and I've made mistakes in the past, and being able to fine tune that over time, and being able to be like, okay, wait, actually, this is my right demographic. These are the kind of people that really have great results with me. And there's some that won't. So I think as practitioners, we have to look at that also and constantly be evolving ourselves. And then as someone who may want to learn how to use their voice more, to really find out, how do you find the right people for you? I think people just very nonchalantly pick practitioners who are going to do deep, intimate work with them. I think you should definitely have an interview with them. You should definitely have a couple referrals from somebody. You should, first of all, if you're working with a man, you should really make sure that they're really doing this, right? There's a lot of guys that just say, I'll give you a yoni massage, I'll do, you know, whatever. Yeah. But if they don't have any provable facts that they do this, that they have training, I personally think it's really important to get training outside of your home state or city. Like, I like to work with people that I know that go to different festivals and retreats and experiences all over the world, because you're going to get a different flavor. You're going to learn how to deal with different situations. I just took a training with Shashi Saluna, who's one of my favorite Tantra teachers. And it was a trauma-informed training for Tantra practitioners. This was last year. It blew my mind. You know, I'd been doing this for 7 or 8 years and hadn't like learned some of this stuff. And I'm like, wow, I actually am like blown away how important this is. And it wasn't just about, you know, the typical things you hear. It was actually hearing case studies from people and different practitioners all over the world in the Tantra space coming through and sharing their stories, their mistakes, how they repaired, and all of those kind of things, which is so important. And it brings me to another point that I really want to say is like, we're really hard on people that are out there coaching and doing this kind of work. And it's not easy. Like, thankfully, I'm very like dense and I'm really able to take it, and I could deal with all the stuff that comes at me and the haters and the false accusations and all the other things that happen, right? And I could deal with when I say like, I f***ed up, you know, I messed up and I want to repair, and I'm here to have a conversation with anybody. But what I don't like to see in the space is people just immediately shitting on male practitioners or immediately believing something they hear, and like this person's life work getting thrown down the drain. So we have to really like be in a cooperative state with people and try to see like how do we create healing? If your goal isn't with somebody else when there's a confrontation or something, isn't how do we create healing, then you're actually just creating more destruction. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to know. And like, you know, I just heard somebody recently said something like, they were just talking about meeting a practitioner in the Tantra space. And it was like, oh, he's a guy, you should meet him, whatever. And she goes, oh, I'm a guy teaching Tantra? No, thanks.
Wow.
And I'm just like, you know, if that's like a mentality out there, what is that saying? Like what men shouldn't be in this work? I mean, do you know how many women need to be doing healing work with men? Because maybe men are the ones that hurt them, and working with women will only get you so far. I don't know, but I would imagine that's the case. You know, if my issues
as embodied individuals, I'm like, yes. And I have seen so much transformation happen in these group workshops and trainings that we do when a woman is paired with a man and there's an immediate activation, right? Either she's triggered by his energy, the color of his skin, whatever story she's creating in the ego and the identity, but then there's a deep surrender. There's a trust because you're held in these containers, right? And you feel supported. And so in that surrender, you get to confront these potential, you know, prickly spaces within the self and within your human experience. And you never know, if you lean into something that may feel a little bit like confrontation, if you lean in with curiosity, what medicine you can receive, what up-leveling that can bring. And so I'm with you, brother, on, just the importance of conscious communication. And I do think conscious communication is rooted in confrontation, right? In normalizing, how do we address when there's like a bump or a mess that we need to clean up, you know? And I know in working with you and supporting you in the curation and coordination of this event that you're producing here in Miami with Andy Buru, known as Rituals, that, you know, there have been moments when you and I have butted, or, you know, you've made a request of me or something hasn't been delivered upon in the proper way. And the worst thing we can do is suppress, repress, like ignore it and not talk through it. And it's something that I really value in yourself, but also all tantric practitioners. I feel that we're really good at just speaking into when we do have a feeling of like something doesn't feel good, like let's resolve this now.
Yeah, if that's what's going on and that's the intention, is I want to resolve this. Some people don't, though. I feel like some people want to cause a spiral of destruction, or they want to boost themselves up on other people's mistakes. And that's something that needs to be more addressed. To me, in the spiritual world, like, I think people forget that it's not supposed to be all love and light. There are shadows, and we need to address them and then work with them in the same love and compassion and care as we do with the light. Yes. And also, like, for me, I will really know someone by how they handle a difficult or confrontational situation.
1,000%.
If you just spiral out and you can't handle it and whatever, that's fine. Like, everyone's at their own place. But you really need to evaluate, like, are these spaces or people that I'm associating with, like, are they people that I'm available for? And I think for me, like, I love that. I love to step into, like, tricky situations and be in the exploration of the void and the shadows and the darkness and see all of that.
Yes.
What I can't deal is with people that want to just ignore that, and they don't want to look in their own shadows, and they want to point out everybody else's. So there's a lot to be said also about like, you know, what do we learn and then we just keep repeating, right? So like there's always this, like, if it's not a yes, it's a no, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, Leola, who I do my retreat with, should we talk a bit about this in the retreat? And she loves to talk about this, well, it's not really true, because like I've had a lot of things that were not yeses that I stepped into, and it was the best lesson of my life.
Yes.
Our lessons aren't always going to be, you know, butterflies and rainbows.
Right.
Our lessons are sometimes going to be like, that was the hardest initiation of my life. And thank God I went through that, because I would not have had this version of me. Like if I didn't go through a certain initiation, I wouldn't have taken this training. If I didn't have this happen in my life, I wouldn't have like taken on like a sub as a, you know, as a client, right? These things that are new and different.
Like,
and
ooh.
yeah, exactly. And, you know, we're constantly evolving, and we have to recognize that and realize that like, it's going to be tough sometimes. You know, like I accidentally went to a, workshop at the Tantra Festival in Sweden. There wasn't a big description of it. I didn't realize what it was, but it was in the sauna. And like, you know, sauna culture in Sweden is amazing. It's great. And it's like this dark sauna. Everybody's stuffed in this room. And like, as we start talking, I thought it was like a meditation. It was like a cathartic release where you're like, you're not locked in there because you could leave. But at one point, I am just sitting next to a bunch of people who are releasing their trauma, screaming. And I'm just going, oh my God, like this is not what I need right now. Like I was in a state of like, I didn't have any trauma to release. I was feeling really good. I was like, this would be a nice journey. And it's like, okay, so like that could have triggered me. That could have been something really crazy.
Yeah. What did you do?
Well, there was two things that happened. One, I'm like, as someone who is a facilitator, I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave this guy's like, he's doing this thing. And if I leave, you know, how's that going to feel? So that was like a people pleaser thing with me that I saw. And the other side of it was like, I don't really want to be here, but like, could I be here? Could I be in this discomfort and maybe just hold space for these people's healing, their trauma, their catharsis? And I sat there and I stayed the whole time. And it was a lot to handle. Yeah. Was that a yes for me? No. But did I do immense damage to myself or any damage? No. I was there and I was able to shift this experience from, because in the end, every experience is neutral. Let's be honest. The worst thing in your life that's ever happened to you is neutral. It's how you charge it. You want to charge
pause
it.
here. Yeah. This is a really phenomenal statement. Every experience is neutral, meaning there's not a positive or negative. Let's talk about like electron, proton, like energy here. Like every experience is neutral.
Until, in your own life, until you charge it how you want to charge it.
Wow.
So yes. I didn't make this up, by the way, but like this is really what helped me get through a lot of things in my life, because it could be like, well, this could be the worst thing that ever happened to me and drive me into drug addiction and being homeless on the streets, or this could be the like drop dead worst moment that has me just finally go, I'm going to wake up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write that book, and I'm going to use this as an example, and I'm going to become a motivational speaker. And people do that, right?
Right.
So,
and I want to normalize sort of the mundane application of like waiting in line, being in traffic, right? We have a choice in each and every moment to, like you said, attach the negative or the positive to the situation. We have a choice if we're going to be happy and singing songs in traffic, or if we're going to be complaining and flipping off somebody.
Yeah,
right?
And that's a great point, because like for me, I could handle those like worst initiations and turn them into the best things that ever happened to you. That's no problem. But when I'm waiting in line, or I'm just like sitting there and someone's kind of wasting my time and I feel really bored and whatever, I get into the complaining, whatever, and I choose to make it a negative situation. And I see someone else there just being like really attentive and compassionate, and like they're creating joy in that moment. And what am I creating? I'm creating disdain. I'm creating judgment. I'm creating control, all this stuff.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this.
Oh yeah, of course. I am very far from perfect, and I'm constantly, you know, what I teach is really what I'm practicing every day. And you know, I notice when I'm judgmental. I notice when I'm kind of like, oh, this person's just droning on and on. But what I also do is I try to serve them, right? So I want to constantly leave people better off than I found them. So if I find that like somebody is just droning on and on and on about something, they've missed the point, they don't even know where they are in the conversation, and I could even see the other people that are there like kind of lost, I might say like, hey, maybe we could bring it back to like focus here. Like what are you trying to get across? I'm a little lost. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. But 99% of people will not do that. They'll just let them go on and on. And what's happening there is two things. One, you're selling out on this person, because they're probably doing that everywhere in their life. The other thing is you're selling out on yourself, because you probably don't want to be there. You're probably thinking about your next move. You're not even being polite to them, but you think you are because you're just letting them do their thing. Letting people do their thing when it's unconscious or not supportive of them, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
So,
As a priestess, I call this sort of cutting through the field of distortion with a sword of clarity. And I'm also kind of feeling this fusion with the Cobra image. Maybe you want to go back to the Cobra and
well, sometimes we can see other people's truths before they can, right? Because don't forget, you're in it. Yeah. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you're like, you could see your partner, but like, and they have the book right here because like it's them, right? But you're standing behind them and you could actually see the words in the book. So you can be like, hey, I'm noticing this, like this thing you're doing. Yeah. They're like, oh, no, whatever. And then they do it. And you mention, hey, you're doing it again. Yeah. So we can actually support people in helping them see their blind spots. And it doesn't have to be a partner. It could be someone we just meet. Now, how do you do that with love? How do you do that gracefully? That does take some practice because like you don't want to be mean to people. You don't want to just cut someone off. But I love when I start my retreats and we're kind of in our big circle, I usually say to people, do I have your permission to coach you to be an interruption on the things that may not be serving you in your life? Because like I will cut someone off. And if they give me that permission, I'll say, hey, hold on. You started talking about this and now you're talking about did you just notice that? Or what people do all the time is they will be giving examples of something and they're trying to share something, but they keep saying you. Like, you know, when you are like in line for something and then you do this. Yeah. So I'll say to them like, actually, I don't know that because that's not how I am. You're talking about yourself, but you're saying you. And what you're doing is you're not owning it. And your words are way more powerful than that. So own what it is, use your thoughts, which are your only currency in this life. And then your words, which are what's showing is what is your currency and creating action. Use them properly. And once they switch to I, you could literally feel the energy change to what they're talking about. And people listen more because it's their story. And you're like, ooh, what is their story? Rather than this like you, who's the you? It almost feels like you're like trying to say it's me. Well, you're not. Right. Why are you saying it's me? You're talking.
Yeah, I love that. And this is applied in relationships, right? I just want to go back to this beautiful practice or application of a metaphor that you just shared, because I've always viewed relationships as like a mirror, like, oh, we're mirroring each other and I'm reflecting back to you. And I love this concept of like the book, like they're holding the book in front of them and then you're behind them reading the words. And so I know you also coach couples and you also consult and curate this epic lifestyle experience here in Miami known as Miami Velvet. So yeah, just apply this to relationships. You mentioned dating in Miami earlier. Like, I know this is like, could be its own podcast about that, but like, yeah, tell us about how all of this human optimization and transformational healing and love gets applied into relationships.
Yeah. So first of all, the thing that I notice I find so interesting, like there'll be a couple. So I do like a Tantra massage session for couples. And typically how it is we have that whole hour-long conversation with a couple. And then we go into like an hour and a half to 2 hours of the massage. And the man usually watches and kind of like takes in and witnesses and gives the love energy while I do the massage on the woman. And of course, if that's within their boundaries, we alter things, whatever. But what typically happens is they come over and we start talking. And it's usually like maybe the first time that they've actually had a third party in the room where they could talk about their relationship. And they know that they're going to be heard and not cut off and not have someone get triggered and whatever. Or if they do, it's like, well, someone's here watching, they're policing us. And many times they came for the Tantra massage and they ended up just talking the whole time because they're like, hold on. No, forget about that thing. We need to talk about all this stuff. Yeah. So if I could just, really give any couple the best advice is don't be afraid to get a therapist, to get couples counseling, to come to someone like me and get coaching that's going to support you in your communication, to really come into your truths, right? And there's 3 truths here. There's the truth of each person and there's the truth of the relationship. What is all of that? And is it fully aligning? And if it's not, and you want to stay in the relationship, how do we make it align? Or maybe you're not supposed to be in this relationship and maybe it would save you guys both a lot of pain to separate. So that's one thing that's really important in relationships and coming into your truths. But it's also like, I feel like most people get into relationships without doing that healing and the explore experiment first. I know a lot of men who, if given the choice, they would choose to not be in a monogamous relationship. But they met some woman, they just kind of like, this is what my parents did. It's not an option to do something that's that alternative. Yeah. And they end up being unhappy or cheating, being out of integrity, whatever. And to me, I'm just like, well, that's because you didn't learn about yourself before you just committed to this person. And now they're stuck.
Yeah.
And it could be anybody, right? There's many different examples we can use for that. But if we actually get to know ourselves, then we could do a better job. It doesn't guarantee it's going to be successful, but like, how much do you want going against you in this life when you don't maybe know the type of relationship dynamic you want? Like for me, it's like really important that my partner can travel. I don't want to be traveling the world doing all these wild parties and events and retreats and festivals and all that, and have my partner being like a lawyer and and they have to work, 80 hours a week and they can't leave and they can't take vacation. Like, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
So I have to be real with that. Now, if I meet the most amazing lawyer, she's like my dream and whatever, I have to be really real with what my life is like. She has to be real with hers. And she might say, you know what? I love you so much. And like, I actually want to find a new job anyway. Like, let's do this. And she could jump on this travel lifestyle. Or she might say, this is my passion. This is my priority. This is number one for me. So if you want to be with me, I don't really want to be with somebody who's going to be traveling the world and doing all these crazy things. So like, being real about that. So
and
that's the truth.
I think
right?
the point that you've iterated a few times, which I think is really critical and almost understated, and it needs to be highlighted more, are those steps of like healing, AKA working on self, really understanding the self. Again, not the self that society told you to be, or your parents, or your caretakers, or your institutions.
Yeah, what is
religion?
self? Like,
what is
who
self?
am I?
Self with a capital S.
Yeah.
Really understanding that and doing the work. And then this exploration piece, like, yeah, I love that. It's so juicy. And I think that without doing that, like you said, it's very easy to just, we used to say settle, right? To settle, to make a choice based on, again, a checking of the boxes, right? So many humans are dating, looking for, this is my list of, this is the perfect match, whether it's an energetic match or a physical match or a financial match, whatever it is, right? Hopefully it's the totality of everything and not just like one sliver. But it's like, they're not actually doing that work on self to, like you said, understand what's going to feel in alignment for the lifestyle that they live and the life that they're calling in.
Right. And you got to get out of your house, get out of your town, get out of your state, go to different places, get uncomfortable, do things that are edgy for you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that, like, again, you're going to stay in this very small bubble. And you could only have so much joy and pleasure and purpose in that small bubble. Like, I want to reach as many people as I possibly can with my work. Obviously, like, if I'm just doing tantra massage one-on-one or with couples, like, I can't do that. There's only so many people and so much time in the day. Yeah. But if I do the Tantra Love Retreat and I do a demo there and I help people practice and learn about this, and then I do podcasts, and then I write a book, and then whatever, this gets out to however many people can possibly be. And it lives on after my death, which is also a thing to consider, is like a legacy.
Yeah. And I feel the point is like you said, to get out of your bubble, and booking a tantric massage, you know, it could be that edgy experience of breaking free and getting out of the bubble, and like going to one of your retreats or attending a workshop, right? Like, that's exactly, we're not talking about like dropping everything and traveling the world.
Right.
It could literally just be a weekend,
session,
a 3-hour session. And you've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand of these impacts that you're making on individuals and couples.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I want to, coming back to what you said about settling, because that brought something up for me. And I'm like, I think probably 80% of people are settling in some or all areas of their life. And that scares me. That makes me feel like, yeah, we are just being spoon-fed a bunch of crap and like living our life that way. And it's more sad to me in the spiritual world, where people constantly say, you create your own reality and yada, yada, yada. And like, it's like, okay, you create your own reality and you're saying this and you're out coaching this and you're talking about it, but like, what is your reality? Is it real, or is it what you're showing on Instagram? And is your actual reality what you want? So prove it. Put it to work. If that's something you're saying and how you're teaching, you're living, then your life should be a 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. And yes, we're going to have problems. And I don't want us to be constantly reaching for things, but we also talk about surrender and the universe is supporting you and we're all one. And it's like, it's nice to say it, but what I want to see is people really living it. It's really nice to be like, you know, what would Jesus do and all that? But people are out there like being so divisive over politics and, you know, all of these things. And it's like, why can't we actually be what we say we are? Because it's the inauthentic thing. We don't know our truth. We haven't done our healing. We haven't done our exploration and experimenting. I mean, there's people who have come to my retreat that are like living the most. We've had senators come to my retreat. We have had, famous athletes. We've had all different kinds of people come to this event that are not in the spiritual world, and their mind is blown.
Yeah.
And they're good people. And then they just become better, and they start to kind of teach this and bring this back to their world in various and the appropriate ways.
Yeah, because it's an opportunity to drop the mask, right? Like you said, to be in your authentic expression and maybe even return to a little common sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's my big thing these days is like, how do we return to common sense? I'm a very practical, logical person. My journey has been actually stepping more into my feminine over the past 7-8 years, creating that polarity and balance within myself. And it's been a journey, and it's been a beautiful one and very difficult in various different ways. But, there is a, the word gaslighting everyone uses all the time now, but there's a way that I've been felt gaslit by the world in certain ways, by certain social constructs, by certain groups, by certain things where they're trying in a way, maybe not even consciously, but they're just trying to distort my reality and my truth. And this is why the truth of a Cobra and that whole idea, it has to be something you practice and understand. Because otherwise, like, you can be easily swayed into things and spend your whole life rah-rah for something or going to like political protests. And like, in reality, it's like, is that actually what I believe? Why do I believe it? How deep how much time do I want to spend on it? Or am I just really being kind of like part of this identity? I want to be part of this group because what? Because we want to belong. And that's a lot about what we're doing with this event called the Rituals. And a lot of work in the BDSM world. It's about belongingness. And this is something Andy taught me, and I really feel like really strongly about, is like, we all have this urge to belong in some way, shape, or form, right? So noticing when we're living in a way or doing something or saying something just to belong, or when is it our truth? So that's really important to bring this common sense back, because some things just don't make sense. Like, they will never make sense to me necessarily. That doesn't mean I won't have a debate with somebody, I won't talk about it. It's just like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
It's a hot topic. It's been a hot topic, but it's just like men and women's sports. Okay. There are women who have been injured, and I don't care how anyone identifies. I don't care. But if someone is much bigger, is stronger, can just absolutely beat everybody in the field, and they weren't in that category or group up until the past few years, and people potentially could get injured, they could lose their hopes and dreams, they've been practicing their whole life for this. Common sense says maybe that person shouldn't be participating in that group. That doesn't mean they shouldn't participate in sports. That doesn't mean we shouldn't make some ways for them to be included. But it doesn't make sense. Like in golf, if Tiger Woods goes and plays on the women's tees, that doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
So there's ways that we can adjust and we can do things. And there's ways where it's like, well, why is this the thing that we're really hammering home?
Yeah.
Because like, when I think we get down and distill it down, like, I probably agree with everybody who wants to be equal, right? And wants to be given fair opportunities and all of that. I think most people, 90% of people, would agree with that. Would they agree that someone who identifies as a man should go in the women's bathroom? You're going to have a lot of problems with a lot of people that are not going to want to do that. If we're not already agreeing to bring any kind of sexuality and like different identifications into like children's schools, why would we now want to bring something else in? So these are definitely like hot topics. And I really just beg everyone to come into me like, what's your actual goal? What is it that you want to convey? And that's the common sense side of this, because it's like, most likely I agree with whatever people want to are saying, but it's the way that it's going about, or it's the example that's being used that is actually getting us lost in the truth.
Well, what we get lost in is this divisiveness that if the truth is actual inclusivity, which is rooted in this sense of belonging, then is this practiced articulation of belief systems, identification, differentiation, are the equality efforts actually creating equity and equality? Or are they actually bringing us further apart?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And also like, we don't want to take away the things that make things different, right? Like if I have a bar and it's a speakeasy, but But everybody goes around and says, well, this should be a sports bar. This should be a sports bar. Like, we want to come in and we want to be in our sports jerseys and whatever. Like, then everything will just turn into a sports bar. We need to have things that actually are different and like are what I like to call distinctions, right? So
niches.
My early work was around distinctions, and it was kind of understanding like, what is the difference between these two words? Because if we can't understand the difference between these two words, how are we going to communicate? And that's why this whole like, what is a woman question is so important.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I remember doing different distinctions in that first training, the gratitude training, where, you know, this master, her name is Betty Spruill. She's still around coaching, and she does this amazing coaching work. But she would just like, you'd say something, she'd be like, oh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the distinction between this word or this theme and this one. Yeah. What really are the differences? If we don't have differences and we can't make definitions, we're not going to be able to communicate, and we're not going to actually be able to create structure. And I think that we have demonized masculinity and the patriarchy and men in general so much that we're losing sight of the importance of having structure and foundations and words that everybody understands what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this distinctions, and as it relates to even preferences, right? And understanding, like you said, the importance of creating the context surrounding what is the definition of this word. Even a word like tantra or a word like intimacy, it's like we don't, unfortunately, because the way our society works is there's so many different interpretations of things. And now what you're referencing is there's even a new interpretation of what does it mean to be a man or masculine versus what does it mean to be a woman or feminine. You know, I mean, it's like we could go on to infinity to
right. And then we're sitting here debating words the whole time instead of being like, okay, this is what it is. And if you want to create a new word for what this is, then like, yeah, cool. And we could get with that. And also, we shouldn't be having people have to speak certain ways or call people certain names or whatever. Like, that's not part of what inclusivity is. It's not, I'm going to be upset if you don't call me by the name that I want to be called. That's like, okay, then I don't want to hang out with you. That's cool. Like, I'm making a request and it's been denied, and that's that. We can't have a temper tantrum about every single thing that we want and make a whole stink about it. We have to be able to say, well, what is the truth here? What do I really want? And is what I'm doing to get that even working? And if it's not working and it's actually pushing people further away, that's on you to change it. And like, that's the problem that I see with a lot of things in the world right now. It's like you're fighting for stuff where it's like, if you actually came through with a different strategy, you'd get a better result.
Right. And one of the new strategies is fusing the esoterics with this, right? Meaning energy, the mystery. How do you take something that's so unknown and untangible in an energetic sense and fuse it with words and structure and systems, right? And so can you kind of see where I'm going with this? Is like,
well, this is why embodiment is so important, right? Because like, I could sit here and debate with you what is a woman all day and we'll get nowhere, right? Or we could do exercises. And
I can like straddle you right now and show you my pussy and identify with what a woman means to me.
You're not technically a woman, or you are, and they'll find all these ways to, you know, I make fun of you because you
spread my legs. I am woman.
But that's like a definite. I would get that, but then I could have someone say, well, you know, this man kind of, you know, he did this and now he has a pussy, so like whatever, and why? So I don't know. I don't want to spend my time debating
exactly.
that. A word has a certain definition, and that's how it's been. And if you want to add a new word, great. But I don't think shifting the way everyone says or believes in something for so long completely on a word is the way to do it. Shifting people's mindset around love and inclusivity and how do we have compassion and how do we understand things, and also respecting if someone's like, I don't really care to understand this because like, it's not in my daily life. It's not something, it's not someone I want to hang out with on a regular basis, and that's their choice. Everyone doesn't have to have this lesson on all of these different things to live their life. Yeah. Now, it's nice if you'd like to offer that, and if people come, great. But again, if I have a speakeasy and a bunch of people want a sports bar, then don't come to my speakeasy. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I am out there to promote my brand to the people that want to come to the speakeasy. And that's my job. And if no one comes to my speakeasy, then I'm just not doing a good job promoting it. And my business will get shut down.
Beautiful. I love this metaphor. Let's talk about in the reality, your offerings, the things that you create. You've mentioned Tantra Love Retreat. I mentioned Miami Velvet. If you want to touch upon that, like what is your speakeasy, right? What are the things that you're offering to the collective?
Yeah, so I call myself a sexual freedom coach because honestly, the word Tantra is so misunderstood. I say it has the worst marketing department in the world. It's 3,000 years old. Most people don't know what it is, or they could say something that it is. Like in the retreat, we ask people, and like usually 9 different people will say 9 different things. And we're like, that's right, that's right, that's right. And I'm like getting back to like, what is the definition of a word? It would be good if everyone had some idea of what Tantra was that was a little more uniform, but every single teacher teaches it differently. Yeah. So I'm trying to, my brand is really to be accessible and to be grounded and to use words that people use in everyday language so that they can understand what Tantra is and not have to go to like a 2-month long yogi training or do all these different things or go to Tibet or wherever to learn about this stuff to just become more tantric, right? So my definition of Tantra is really about acceptance. Wow. If we can accept ourselves as these humans living in this world right now, we're going to have a much easier time and we're going to be in our bliss if we just operate under the gratitude of exploring our 5 senses, right?
Yes. All right, let's slow this down because this is really epic, Justin. So acceptance and sensorial awareness, accepting that we're human and in this human form for a limited time, which means we're identified as sentient beings that are here with a sensorial awareness in the connection that we have with the outside world, universe, collective, other humanity, with the 5 senses.
Everything you're saying is great, but all the words you just use are a lot of buzzwords and things that the people that I want to communicate with are not going to get, like sentient beings, and and it's great.
This is universal intimacy. Okay,
and that is exactly, and that's your brand. What I'm trying to convey is that like I don't know anyone else who really defines Tantra under the 4 pillars that I do, which is acceptance, self-love, connection, and presence.
Okay, acceptance, self-love, connection, and presence. Let's walk through those 4 pillars.
Yeah. I mean, acceptance is accepting your body, accepting your sexuality, accepting your emotions. Those are the 3 I harp on because they're really the tough ones. So
and by body, are you referring to this physical form or are you also referring to your emotional body and your mental body?
Well, the body is the body, the emotions is the emotions, and then the sexuality is whatever the sexuality is for you, because almost everybody is repressing some turn on, some fantasy, or they have had trauma or indoctrination and they're not able to fully accept their sexuality in whatever ways. Maybe they're just not accepting that they're gay. Maybe they're not accepting that they really love MILFs. Yeah. Whatever it is for them, it's their thing. And whatever it is, that's great. But if you don't accept it, that's where the shadow takes hold. And now you end up with this repressed, really dark thing that maybe comes out in a porn addiction or comes out in, some weird cheating on your wife and some, whatever the thing is, right? Yeah. That is where I'd like to prevent, because we're just not accepting our human reality, which is that we're sexual beings and it's okay for us to get horny over certain things. It's okay for us to touch ourselves. Now, could those things turn into bad things, right? Like if you're just at home masturbating all the time, that's not ideal. That's where self-love comes into play. You get to be doing things in your life that serve you. That's part of my definition of self-love. The other part is, do you actually receive and give love freely? Most people will not receive love. They will block it off. They'll block off everything they can. And it's part of their, healing processes. You need to look at that. Why can't I accept compliments? Why can't someone do me a favor? Why am I kind of pushing away support in every aspect of my life? Well, that's not being self-love. Also, being like an alcoholic is not self-love, because you're not doing something in your life that serves you. That's something that doesn't serve you. And none of this is perfect, right? I'm not like, I'm 100% so. I do things in my life that don't serve me once in a while. I definitely have ways where I've pushed people away and pushed love away in certain senses. It's a process, but you have to at least recognize that if you want to be tantric, there's this aspect of accepting yourself in this human form. And I do think there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that are, I want to get to the 5D. I want to travel astral. And it's like their whole goal to leave this place in some way,
to transcend this human experience.
Yeah, and that's okay if you're doing it with an acceptance of like, wow, like I love this place, I love my body, I love being on this 3D world, and how cool is it that I can also travel astral? How cool is it that I can speak to dead people or whatever you can do? I've never been able to do any of that, so I mean, good on you if you can, but not making it a goal. The goal is to taste the fruits of the markets. The goal is to be able to smell that perfume that you just love on a lover's body, and then be able to touch them and feel what it's like to actually touch somebody. Yes. to listen to the music that you love so much and to look at a sunset and have tears rolling down your eyes, and maybe to look at that lover who's looking at that sunset with tears rolling down her eyes, and you then get emotional. Wow, what an honor and a gift. Meanwhile, we're sitting here worried about, am I going to get my, my raise and my documents done and like this and that and all these other things.
Yeah.
So life can be a lot more simple if we actually come in and live this tantric way of acceptance, of self-love. And then obviously presence, be here now. Like if you're constantly worrying about what happened in the past or the future and all these things and you're not here, and I have to catch myself all the time. I'm in my head, some loop is running and it's like, wait a second, like here I am with a great opportunity to be on this podcast with you. I better be here talking about the things I really want to speak about and what's really coming through. Yes. I had zero plan. I showed up here 2 minutes before this thing and I'm like, let's go. Because I know that I am going to be in my truth with my authenticity. I'm going to share the things I want to share and it's going to all be perfect. Mm-hmm. That's part of loving and loving yourself and trusting this human experience. And so we have acceptance, self-love, presence, and connection. And this is an area where living in New York City, I saw a lot of problems, right? People are not connected to themselves. People are not connected to others. You walk around the streets in New York, people are looking down and people are on their phones walking into traffic. It's kind of like, where are you? And then not having a connection to Mother Earth, right? To have connection to nature. Exactly. Like the best thing I ever did was buy the house that I have in Miami and have this beautiful garden. And I walk out there and I see my cats playing and butterflies and mangoes coming off the trees. And I'm just like, I can't believe that this is like what I get to step into every day. I get to be connected to nature no matter what's going on in my life. I could spend a whole day working and then walk outside and have my feet in the grass. And I don't want to discount that for anybody. And if you live in New York City, go to Central Park. Get out of the city once in a while and do those things. Go to the beach. I mean, the ocean is probably the most healing thing you can do is stepping into the ocean and allowing those waves to take you. I always tell people too, like around meditation, because it's a big part of Tantra is what is your meditation? And like for me, it was never sitting cross-legged and just closing my eyes and breathing and just having like clear the head. It's not that I can't do it. I could do it. It's just not the thing I want to do daily. For others, it is the best thing they could ever do, and they love it. So you have to find out what meditation is for you. Again, what is your truth around this? Because if you try to fit yourself into this, round peg into a square hole, whatever it is. Yeah. If you do that, you're not going to like meditation and you're going to just not meditate. So instead, for me, meditation is walking around my garden and just looking at all of the nature and seeing what's happening. The best meditations I've ever had was actually just scuba diving and surfing. Why? Because you damn well have to be present. You damn well are paying attention to your breathing. You're paying attention to the nature. You're actually having to become one. And when I was surfing and I'd fall off my board and I'm like getting in this washing machine of surf and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, like I better like relax. I better surrender. I better allow the ocean to take me, because if I stiffen up and I come down and I hit something, like I might break an arm, I might hit a rock, something might happen. So you have to be in this flow of life in that way. And I do believe like surfing and some of these like more extreme sports really can get you there. Now, I don't want to be doing extreme sports all the time, so I choose my garden.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I had a yoga instructor by the name of Kelly Moore, and I remember I would come to her often and be like, I can't create the time to like do yoga. It's like attending the yoga class or booking a session with you. And she's like, you can practice yoga in your everyday experience. So it's similar to meditation. And this is why we're so huge on like living tantrically, right? And being present. It's like, okay, I'm a mom, right? And so I'm like sitting at my kid's baseball game. While I'm sitting there in the chair, can I take my shoes off and just feel that connectivity between my bare feet and the grass? Right. And it's like, like that's my yogic practice that day. That's my meditation.
And then how do you respond when the mom next to you in like the nice Louboutins looks at your feet and is like, oh my God, what is this hippie doing? How do you respond to that and just be in your,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have an energy field about me, which I know you know because you've been with me, that I don't really magnetize a lot of criticism to my field outwardly. Very few people come to my face and or make a reaction to me publicly. It's usually done behind my back. So I'm sure she's with her girlfriends having wine that night being like, oh my God, I saw this mom at this baseball game with her shoes off having a orgasm, because I'm probably having like a full body orgasm as I'm doing it. I'm like, oh yes, with this like beautiful smile. But like, I am that mom. I am that mom at the baseball game, sitting by myself, bare feet in the grass with the majority of my clothing off because I'm taking in the vitamin D.
You're painting a good picture. I'm picturing you naked having an orgasm at your son's baseball game. I mean,
that's
this is
literally
hilarious.
what I'm doing, Justin. Like, I don't have like the to-go container filled with wine. And this was my own journey of in the recognition of like, I don't want to be living this classic suburban lifestyle. I mean, I had all the things. I had a beautiful husband, beautiful children, right? I had all the things, the house, the white picket fence. I was living that reality. And I was also going to the sporting events, hanging out with moms who literally had a Starbucks thing filled with wine, and they were drinking the wine all day long just to cope, just to make it through.
Yeah.
And
well,
I
you
knew,
found your truth, right? Your truth was like, okay, I want to live a different life. I want to have expansion. I want to teach these things.
And part of my truth was claiming, similar to you, like, I love sex. And I do think that we get judged and vilified and distorted by claiming that. And in doing so, though, it's exactly what you've spoken into. It's number one, we're claiming that we're human. We're here for this human experience for a limited amount of time. And part of human is our eros, is your cock, my and the desires of that sacred life force energy and that sacral chakra, and how that energy wants to move through us creatively, right?
Yeah.
How we want to manifest our desires and generate wealth and abundance and juiciness and sensually experience this human planet, this delicious planet. And
so that was a roundabout way to get back to, I guess, Tantra, the definition, and then also the other things that I'm doing here. Yeah. The journey from Tantra really went from that to like, okay, well, what else do people really need? And I started to realize there's other offerings that aren't available that I can support people with. So I started to get interesting requests from clients that were like around fantasy fulfillment experiences. And then I started doing consulting for a sex club, a swinger club, lifestyle club, whatever you want to call it. It is a huge club in Miami. It's called Miami Velvet. And there are, regular club stuff, bar, DJs, all that. And then there's a kink lounge, which I created. So now there's a space for people to talk, to chill, to hang out and get some impact play, to be on a spanking bench, St. Andrew's Cross, etc. And then there's also back rooms and a locker room. So there's rooms with beds, and there's a big orgy room, and there's all these other things. And people are like, oh my God, that's crazy. I'd never go. I've taken so many people there who I'm just like, listen, it's a regular club. You don't even have to go to the back. You might see some people getting a little more wild and they, half naked on a stripper pole, but like, that's fun. That's cool. Yeah. You don't have to do anything when you go there. It is really just a liberating place. And it's a great place to go if you're in that phase of after healing and in the experiment explores phase, right? What is it like to go to a place and just see people in their full sexual expression in a party mode, right? This isn't a Tantra temple. This is a different state. And I do believe it's important to also accept that that is a way of being and understand that maybe that is or isn't what you like, right? I've wavered back and forth. I actually feel much more at home in lifestyle experiences and sex parties and things like that aren't like super tantric and super, touch and go, or I don't know how you want to say it. Yeah, super spiritual. Like, it's nice to have the structure of the spirituality, but it's also nice to have the like movement and the progress that kind of happens in these other events, as well as some of the other things that the different personalities and things you can explore with there. So anyway, so I basically got to be a consultant for this club. I've been hired for a year and change now. So it's my second year doing consulting for this club. And I'm basically doing everything I can to help the club succeed, to bring better customer satisfaction to it. I'm bringing in all kinds of new elements. And now in my second year, it's like a nice foundation. And now it's like, well, what else do I want to do here? And trust me, when I was like a little kid, I was never like, what are you going to do with your life? I'm going to be a tantric practitioner and a sexpert, so I do different consulting as well as experiences that I bring to different events and festivals and things like that. Yes. So that's been cool. And then again, people have asked me, okay, well, could you help us fulfill this fantasy? How could I safely have a hot wife experience, right? Like people don't know how to do that, but like the guy might be like, this is a really deep fantasy of me I've always had. I never even thought I could make that happen. How would I do that? So they come to me and I support them in making that happen. Other people want to experience like different kind of BDSM dynamics. They want to be submissive, and I offer a session where you get to kind of be submissive to me, and I dom you in various different ways. And all of these things are very natural in the sense of that within people, they really want it. They're just not sure where to go or how to do it. And once they know that there's a place where you can come, and talk about, here's these deep desires I have no idea how to do it. Can you help guide me? What could happen here? So that's a big part
and
of it.
I want to pause there only because what you're saying, somebody is like, oh my God, that sounds like a dream life. Like you get to curate these experiences, but like with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't something where someone comes to me and I'm like, okay, cool. How can I get all my needs met? No. My
and
needs
you can't
are
just
out there.
start it. Like you've done years of training and you do all your own personal growth workshops to be able to step into that role to create the container that is safely and impeccably held. Yeah, and I've been in one of your containers that was impeccably held. And I just really want to disseminate that messaging, because we can idealize and or fantasize something of saying like, oh my God, he gets to curate threesomes for people or something. It's like, no, it's not that basic.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it happens in all
very
places,
complex.
Right? At the Tantra Love Retreat, we've had women who've requested a gangbang, for lack of a better term. I've taken clients who wanted to have experiences with like other people, and it's like, okay, come with me to Miami Velvet and we'll see what we can curate. And they've had their fantasies fulfilled. And because some things like I can't just guide them on myself or create it myself. I have to actually bring other people in or create different scenarios for them. So it is a really cool thing. And this was also part of my progression out of the corporate world, is like, I want to create a job that just is like, I would love to do it for free.
Yeah.
And, I think I've created a job where like, I would do it for free. I'd probably pay to do some of the things I get paid for in my life. And some people are like, oh, you broke the matrix, or I can't believe you do this and whatever. But they kind of stop there. And that bothers me. Like, I'm like, yeah, great. You think that I created my own reality in this amazing way, in a way that you can't even fathom. And what about you? What are you doing? Are you just going to look at that and go, wow, this guy did that thing, and now I'm going to go back to doing things I don't enjoy? So I want to be an inspiration for people in that, and know that like most people don't want to and can't do what I do. That's fine. Replace me for anyone else who's extremely inspiring, who maybe for some people, it's that pain to purpose, right? There's some people I'm so inspired by because I'm like, damn, you had a rough life, or you really overcame this thing, and like, look at you now. Yeah. That's inspiring for some people. Right. But I do think because I work in the realms of sexuality and all this kind of intimacy and whatever, people sometimes shy away from it, or they hate on it. They have their projections, they have all of that. But fine, take that out and just listen to the journey of finding your truth, healing, exploring, experimenting, and then stepping into your mastery and empowerment, right? Like the way that I can speak about this, the way that I can step into and hold space for others is because I can communicate very clearly, and I can disseminate what's going on with other people. I can see their truths. I can create a space where they feel comfortable to share their truth with me.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for answering the call to be of service. Right?
It's an honor.
Yeah, not only claiming your own truth and your own sacred life force expression, but then being willing to show up and share that with others in, again, such an exquisite and impeccable way. Tell us how folks can find you, what offerings you have coming up, and for those curious about working with you and going deeper, how they can connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about me or connecting with me, all of my brand is Tantra Love Coach. So Tantra Love Coach on Instagram is a great way to get in touch, or you could go to my website, tantralovecoach.com. I do have the Tantra Love Retreat. We have level 1 and level 2 coming up in September, so you have plenty of time to do your research. And you can find the information on the Tantra Love Retreat at the link in my bio. But I'm very accessible, so feel free to reach out. Let me know what you're thinking about, maybe even if just something you heard here was interesting to you. And then we can schedule a call, talk about potentially coaching or doing Tantra massage or any of the different things. I love to customize experiences for people. So if you're like, ooh, this piqued my interest and I'd really be interested in that, don't think I don't do it. Come to me and we can talk about it on ways to create a safe space for you to have that healing or expansion that you're looking for.